Ye- Yay! Hi, Nancy.
Hi,
Okay.
Archit.
We are talking about the Booker shortlist, and obviously, we are the
Yes.
best people to talk about it. And
Why do you think we are the best people to talk about it?
because we are really intelligent, smart, and we like to praise ourselves all the time. So, in
Okay.
continuing with that, we will talk about the Booker shortlist.
Yes.
Though there is a whole caveat that we'll come to very later in the video. But okay,
Okay.
let's not after. Uh, so let's start. Tell
Yes.
me the book that you did not like at all, or the least liked book among the Booker shortlist, among all the books that you have read.
It's very difficult for me actually to answer that question because I really do not have a least favorite book this year. In fact, I am quite all the books that I've read I really liked, and I am when I started reading, in fact, the first book, This Mournable Body, I was quite sure that it's going to win the Booker, and then when I read the second book, I thought, oh no, this one's going to win the Booker, and then when I read the next one, I thought it's going to win the Booker. So unlike last year when I had like a couple of books that I did not really like, this year I do not have a book I don't like. What
So that's
about you?
yes. So after this diplomatic answer, which will make the video really dull, let's just come to like point-wise system. Which is your least favorite book? Okay, if you could choose one.
um
Oh,
if I have to choose, I will say right now my least favorite book is The Shadow King.
The Shadow King. Okay, okay. So why is it your least favorite?
Because it's brilliant. It's really in the way it has. It's really exciting. It's interesting, but I mean, when it comes to the other books, real life and this one, it doesn't really stand
It doesn't
anywhere
really.
close. Yeah,
So there are no guesses for which book I dislike the most. It is this one, The
The
New
New Wilderness.
Wilderness.
Yes, your
It's
rant
just
reviews in red
yeah,
pajamas.
yeah, man. It's such a dull book, and it's a flat book. It's
What do
a
you mean flat?
flat is uh, okay. That's a very interesting question. Flat is when you it doesn't seem dramatic enough. And now I have to qualify this statement with one thing. When I'm saying it doesn't seem dramatic enough, it has a lot of events happening. It is set in a dystopian world. The dystopian world is filled with different kinds of characters, but nothing feels dramatic. You remember there are times when we watch a superhero movie. When we watch a superhero movie, a building falling down is not dramatic because from the
Yeah,
first moment when you start watching the movie, buildings are falling down.
yeah,
So a, a good film director can make a twinkling of the eye, or if someone stares at someone, or in Godfather, if there is one comment, one dialogue, dramatic. It's just Marlon Brando has to look from one this particular person to another person, and the movement has come, and you can feel it in your body. And a bad superhero movie can just blast off the whole city, and you will feel nothing.
mm-hmm.
So in that sense, a lot is happening in the novel. But when I think about it, how it hits the reader, it does not hit the reader. And it does not hit the reader on primarily because you do not connect with the characters. What the
Okay.
characters do does not seem believable enough. What
You give an
Beatrice does.
example.
Like there is a moment when the character Beatrice, she is thinking about her mother in this wilderness, and she hears the news that her mother has passed away. Now she's a woman who's gone away from her mother, left her behind in the city. She's suffering. After the mother passes away, she decides to go back to the city, and her daughter is screaming behind her. Husband is there, and it's just not clear why is she going back now. There is no one there left. Though
Mm-hmm.
even it's not like she has to do the funeral proceedings also because she hears about the mother's death long after she has died. So it's just meaningless, and then she just goes away for uh, like almost like 20% of the novel, and you're just confused, why would a character do such a thing? So a lot of points, the actions of Beatrice, the actions of Agnes in the novel, they don't seem believable enough, they don't seem uh, compelling enough to make you focus on the novel. So it falls like it's a flat narrative. A lot of things happen, but nothing is dramatic enough, and nothing is
But
connected.
so like I have a question here. So when we read, say, fantasy, or we read, sci-fi novels, a lot of things are not believable, but the authors are usually, able to create sort of the life world where, you start believing that actually there's a magic wand that Harry Potter has, which can, bring fire, or which can bring water, whatever. So, in that sense, when you're already qualifying that this New Wilderness is actually a dystopian novel, then why should the characters follow like this kind of rationalization that we living in, a so-called non-dystopian world have? Like, why can't they have their own set of actions, which you and I probably will not understand, because we are living in a non-dystopian world, if I were to use that word.
There is a small difference between being believable and being realistic. Harry Potter is not realistic, but Harry Potter is believable. Oh, when I say it's not believable, when a writer builds a character, there is a certain consistency to the character, and we know even if the character transforms, what are the various ways in which it can transform. Now, let's imagine at the end of the second book of Harry Potter, you find that Hagrid is killing Harry Potter. Hagrid has a whole plan to kill Harry Potter. What you will immediately feel is that Hagrid as a character is not built up for those actions. It is something that does not fit. So Hagrid at that moment becomes unbelievable. This has nothing to do with realism. You can be absolutely unrealistic. Superhero movies are unrealistic, but they're believable. For me, all fiction is unrealistic. Realism is just another method of trying to create a semblance of reality in fiction. So when everything is unbelievable, believable, unrealistic, you can only aim for believability, a consistency in character actions. Does that make sense? Like, uh, I am showing that a person is in love with someone, and the next day I wouldn't show that they go and murder the other person. It would just not connect, with the two dots won't connect. There has to be a whole story that tells me how that decision has taken place. That is where the believability is not there. And that is what distinguishes believability from realism.
And which book did you like the most?
Which book did I like the most? That's also very clear from my reviews. I
Real
like real
life.
life. I like real life the most. I think real life is a phenomenal novel. And connecting with that idea, one of the things that people have said about real life is that it doesn't have much action. It lacks action. It's
Yeah,
a
I think, sorry to interrupt you, but what you're saying about New Wilderness, that it lacks drama, I think a few people are also saying that real life lacks drama, in some sense. But for me also, it's full of actually drama
yeah.
and theatrics. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Drama does not depend upon how big your actions are, but how compellingly even the smaller action is portrayed. Like if
Yeah.
there is a scene I remember. There is a movie directed by Konkana Singh Chamra, Death in the Gunj. Have you seen that one?
Yeah.
In that movie, there is a scene when a person betrays a child, and they're walking away from the child, and there's nothing is happening, but the child just stares at in absolute disbelief that an old man, an adult, can betray him. And there is so much drama, but those
Mhm.
buildings are being flown off. In that sense, real life is filled with drama, filled with drama.
Yes.
The smaller incidents when I have the book, when Emma, when she hears that his father has passed away, and she gets up and kisses him on the lips, even though she has a boyfriend, even though she knows he is gay, but she has the just this gesture of kissing him.
And
And
also, like because you're talking about that scene, the way Emma's boyfriend also responds to the whole event, even though everyone knows that Wallace is gay, and that Emma and Wallace are very good friends, and kiss is not sexual, not romantic at all. I mean, that's sort of like it's like a pre-existing knowledge that everyone has that Wallace cannot have anything sexual or romantic with the girl. But the tension that that moment creates, and what that tension does eventually, is I was quite hit by, I think, the how the scene ends where Emma and the boyfriend are, they are now, I don't know, they are embracing each other, or they are just, they come together as a couple, and Wallace is left sitting by the lake all by himself, and and I could totally picture that scene, and that kiss, just it really sort of reveals so much about how people function in the world, and what happens between friends, and what happens between partners. It was a very telling scene for me also, that it was.
like the whole novel, it just says that even the conflict becomes between Emma and our boyfriend Wallace, who has just in the process of processing what has happened. Why has a friend done this to me? Why has she reacted in this way? He's
Yeah.
just left marginal to the whole
Yes,
scene,
exactly.
as if his feelings don't count.
Matter. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
and that's a repeated experience for him. That
Mhm.
as if his feelings don't matter. Uh, you, what are your opinions? Okay, let's. Which novel did you feel is your favorite?
I think that real life is really my favorite also, because of everything that you are saying. But I thought that it was really, for me, able to humanize a character, in the sense that many a times when we are reading about characters who come from marginalized communities, or from communities who have been historically disadvantaged, they are put into the bracket of victimhood constantly, and they are attributed even this moral high groundedness. At times they are attributed this higher sort of ethical positions, but with I really really appreciated how human Wallace was. There, like, he was he I thought he was one of those very complete characters, who is so actually close to real life. That it is so. You are definitely going to meet a Wallace in your life. I'm definitely going to meet a Wallace in my life. So, in that sense, it was again, the idea of believability, definitely of how related I felt, but while keeping the politics very. And Brandon Taylor has said this, in his interviews so many times, that he wrote this novel over 5 weeks, and he has, given many reasons behind writing this novel. But while keeping the politics alive, he's also made the politics not a main character in film, is in the novel. Because I have imagined it as a film, like the lake and the birds, and the terrace where they go later at night. I have imagined how it looks like. I've imagined it in snapshots. So I also think that the novel has a very tactile sort of character. It's very real in that sense, that even though it's set in America, I've never been, and I have never lived in a city which has a lake in the middle of it. But I could totally imagine that, and I could totally imagine that kind of campus life, people eating ice cream on hot summer days. I have hardly been to a beach in my life, but it was just so, I mean, the reality of that novel was really, it just surprised me so much. And I thought Brandon Taylor is just brilliant. I mean, I'm waiting now for to read more of
By
literature.
Brandon.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
One thing that personally hit me is this always the notion that he has while being in the university, that he's not part of real life. And that was like a personally spoke to me that, when you're in college, this is not real life. There are people outside who are doing business, who are in jobs, and that is real life. And even when you get a job, there is this always notion that life is elsewhere. Like Milan Kundera says,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, life is elsewhere. It's not here. That this is not real life. This doesn't feel practical, tangible enough to constitute as real life. What we are doing is it's just a fragmented illusion built in a small cocoon, and real life is somewhere outside the cocoon. And yet, even the politics of that cocoon, the problems of that cocoon are so burdensome that you fear what will happen when you enter the real life itself.
Yes. Yes, but I thought that I mean, what you're saying actually is quite. I understand where you're coming from also, because we have been in academics for all of our adult life. All of our adult life. We've been in universities. We are still in universities, not students anymore, but
they
still
have
in
not
universities.
We have still not tasted real life anyways.
No, but what I actually, and I wanted to bring this point because Brandon Taylor himself has said that in the recent times, at least in the US, there are writers who are writing stories based in university. So, for example, Sally Rooney, she's an Irish writer. She got very famous with her two books, Normal People and Conversations with Friends, which are both based in universities. I think both of them are based in Dublin University. And Brandon Taylor goes on to say that people like him, people of color, homosexuals, people from the marginal communities are actually absent in these novels. And that's why he wanted to, and even when they are present, they are maybe present as a friend or, as a temporary love interest. They are not, these campus novels are not about, these people of color, marginalized, etc., etc. And he wanted to write that novel, which was because he himself is black. He himself was a graduate student in sciences and design. So he said that he wanted to tell the story of people. And
Hmm.
so many people have drawn that autobiographical sort of, similarity. But again, I thought that, the description of how lonely academics can get was so on point. Um,
Yes,
like it was
yes.
so on point, and it was so moving. And I was constantly thinking about the times that I've spent all by myself in the library researching on, one obscure, thing about my research area. And, similarly, you also have done those things. So it totally, I mean, it makes academics, which might not be real life, so real that it's really fascinating, ways in which language can be used by people who know how to use it. Um, yeah.
The one way to put it, like, I don't know, while you were talking, I was thinking of this. Like, if this world is the real life, we always feel in the university that we are not part of the real life. We are somewhere margins to the university. But in the middle of the university, also, there are a group of people who are at the center of the university. They are the most happening people. They have the most, like Roman is there, the gay man from France who has affairs, who is having constant kind of presence in the university as a space. And within that marginalized space also, you are marginal to it. You're not at the center of that happening life. And that just is always a feeling of being uncertain about where you are, and lack of being rooted in where you are. And maybe, maybe perhaps if I think about it like this, otherwise, objectively, when I think, I still believe that real life is perhaps the best novel among the Booker shortlist this year. But subjectively, I think it spoke to me because it was set in a university. That has
Yeah.
contributed to my experience of the novel and my
Yeah.
affection for the novel.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I think it spoke to me so much also because it was about a graduate student. It is set in a university. Yeah, and it is quite real in that sense. I thought that I've met a lot of those characters in universities, you know. Yeah, Wallace, Miller, Emma. I thought I've seen people like that around me in my university experience. So, but
You know,
real life is actually not amongst the favorite this year. Uh,
mhm.
like for others, they are many people are rooting for Avni Doshi, and
Yeah, this one, there, everyone's talking about
yes,
this one. Yeah,
everyone's
real.
talking about that. And I don't know, is there a second book people are talking about? Because everyone I'm looking at is talking about Avni Doshi.
Yeah, a lot of people are talking about Avni Doshi, but oh yeah, there's no other second book. Matlab, this Mournable Body will be like a underdog winning the Booker. This Mournable Body is
Mm.
not generally in the conversation. Uh, Real life people found boring, yeah, which is
Surprising,
shocking
right?
for
Yeah.
shocking for me that some people found it boring and some people found it slow. I heard a review about Real Life, which was about the fifth chapter when he goes into his past and describes his past events, and they said that's the only good chapter about the book. I don't know. I just felt that Real Life was it captured something very, it was structured in a way that it was very, very powerful. But anyways, let's just talk about Avni Doshi's novel, The Girl in White Cotton, the book that I wanted that I wanted to get it. I wanted it to win the Booker before I had read it because it's written by an Indian author, and I was like, maybe I'm finding an author that is as good as Rashidi or Arundhati Roy, and through this novel, I'm going to discover and fall in love with this author. And I think what I found mostly was someone like Arvind Adiga rather than
Don't say that.
Arundhati.
No, no,
No,
please.
Arvind Adiga is, yeah, Arvind Adiga is worse off than Avni Doshi. Avni Doshi is, it's a decent novel, but a decent novel is not okay. What is the newness of Avni Doshi is the portrayal of the relationship between the mother and the daughter. The absolute eulogization that we have in our contemporary culture about motherhood, it is just ripped apart. And motherhood as crisis, motherhood has trauma, bearing a child as a literal burden, struggle. All of those things figure again and again in the novel, and they become a very compelling narrative point. But the problem with real life is that it just does not stick to its theme. It has the problem of meandering too much. It has a problem of telling too much about characters that is unnecessary and that confuses the reader. So it just it had the capacity. Again, you mentioned that in one of your reviews also, that a great novel is that shows compassion for all its characters. With real life, the compassion is, the opposite of a great novel is a novel that is obsessed with its protagonist, that sees the world from its protagonist. I can totally understand people and protagonists and characters and humans in this world who cannot see the world from some other perspective. But when you're writing a novel, you can create the novel in a world way that you show the character who cannot see the world from another perspective, but the novel in itself shows other worlds. The
Yeah.
novel has the possibility of creating situations where this main protagonist comes across as dumb or doesn't know what's happening. In some ways, Girl in White Cotton does that. Here is a woman. She hates her mother, or she has like very conflicting relationship with her mother throughout the novel, and she basically despises her because she did not care for her as a child. And then at the end of the novel, she gets pregnant, and what she feels for her child is not some boundless ecstatic love. She feels conflicted relationship. She does not feel like she uh, cares for the child. And all of those things, there is a turnaround that happens. There's a turnaround from, being someone who despises your mother to having a very conflicted relationship with your daughter. It's like you become your own mother, that kind of narrative. uh, so in that sense it is layered. But what are the other characters who have a presence and who have a possibility apart from these two characters, the mother and the daughter? There is no other character that spoke to me. And especially I was very keen on reading the novel because it was set in the Pune ashram of Osho. And whenever there is a reference to the Osho ashram, or when there is a description of the Osho ashram, I feel the novel is at its high point, and yet it abandons that surface, and it abandons that Osho ashram, that kind of weird, spooky, mystical, mad place of people doing crazy things, to talk about the medicines that are to be given to the old mother. And I'm like, there could have been just a certain consistency of space, a consistency of characters, with the Baba himself, who would be Osho, playing a major role in the novel. But he's just there in the first 30% of the novel, and then the 70% is completely different. So all of that created a narrative which was a very meandering narrative. And I think my like demands from novels and movies always is to have something that's very unified and compact.
But I think what you said, that the newness that Avni Doshi brings is to, complicate or problematize this mother-child relationship. But actually, it's quite an often repeated theme. And at the top of my mind, I am actually remembering the works of Simone de Beauvoir, where she is, constantly talking about uh, very troubled relationships with her mother. And then recently, I've come across a lot of fiction. For example, even the new book by Elena Ferrante, The Lying Life of Adults, or books by this another American called Otessa Moshfegh. She's written, a couple of really interesting, exciting books. And in all these novels, we see, a sort of, I don't want to call it like a counter narrative to motherhood, because I think, motherhood always has had all those sort of, you know, what you can call it, highs and lows for all women who experience motherhood. But these novels actually have been able to really, invert the idea of motherhood, and they have been able to, look at it through lenses of not care, or not nurturing, but sort of abandonment, etc. And in that sense, I mean, if Avni Doshi has contemporaries, who are writing on similar themes, and who are writing on similar themes in much more powerful ways. And I think that Elena Ferrante, even in her Neapolitan novel series, the four novels she wrote, there is a constant presence of the relationship between, mother and daughter, definitely. And that relationship, survives for novels, 1,200 pages. And it doesn't leave you with any warm fuzzy feelings, where the main protagonists also become mothers themselves, both the main protagonists, and how do they handle their own motherhood. And this is something that even this more nimble body, deals with in
Parts.
towards the end, and in parts, where I thought the question that Tambudzai actually was asking herself towards the end of the novel was, whether all of us as women are just, copies of women before us. In that sense, our mothers, our aunts, our grandmothers, our great grandmothers, are we only copies, with slightly different faces? But I don't know. I don't know if we are. I mean, I would like to believe that we are not copies. I would like to believe that there's more. There's more. Even though
Uh,
I'd like to believe that we do get some things. I mean, I would like to believe that I have some things from my mother, but I wouldn't want to be. her copy. Oh, you're not supposed to say such personal things on YouTube, right?
No, 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 that's fine. The one thing that I think Avni Doshi really gets good and she's good at is just getting the tone of the character right. That kind of narcissistic, it's with the first itself line itself because it's a first person novel. I would be lying if I said my mother's misery has never given me pleasure. It just sets the tone of this woman who, and she's a very weird kind of woman. She is caring for her mother. She is super paranoid about the medicines that she is having, what she is doing, and all her hatred has to be suppressed. All her anger has to be suppressed, and then there is another layer where she expresses care for the mother. So this kind of depth where there is anger burning at the like bottom, but at the top, oh, did you have your medicine? That kind of, and both with equal level she's able to portray. And the way, one thing that she did, and it was very marginal to the book but I really liked it, was talking about women's labor in very very, not in a very kind of grandiose lecture giving tone, but she's, every time she looks at her husband, she notices the clothes that he's wearing, and how if he goes to the gym in these clothes it will be difficult to wash them. So yeah. It's a constant reminder. Okay, how, and she's just not. It's not saying anything that I have to wash the clothes. There's no commentary on it. But she's just keeping a nap. Okay, he wore this shirt. I have to wash this here. This has to be put into the laundry. That has to be. And these are just perhaps few lines across the novel, but I think they reveal the kind of labor that she's engaging in, which her husband is not even conscious that she engages in. He
Yeah.
has not he's unaware of that labor being performed, and she's not giving a lecture about it, but she's just performing it, and in that act of performing it makes a political statement in a very subtle way. That's something I really appreciated about the novel. But you started talking about This Vulnerable Body. What do you feel about that novel? Initially you like thought that was going to win and should win.
Yeah, I mean, and I was so sort of engrossed and impressed by this Mournable Body that I read the previous two novels also in the trilogy, Nervous Conditions and The Book of Not. And I thought that, I'm really, really impressed by Sitsi Dangarembga's voice. I think her voice as an author is so clear. She has a very, distinctive clarity about what she wants to say. And I thought that even in the subplots of the trilogy, where you are meeting some minor characters, if I call them that, what she's trying to show is so clear in all the scenes, the way the novel begins, and it just hits you with that scene, the combi, the sexual abuse scene, and then uh, I mean, I think I said it in the review also. The matter of factness, that he sort of displays towards these acts of violence was something that really troubled me. Um, as a reader, and I was feeling a second-hand rage that why are these women not doing anything about what's being done to them. And then you sort of experience or encounter that similar kind of matter of factness in Brandon Taylor's real life, or with Wallace's silence. And that really makes me wonder about the, like, what is this silence about. But in this Mournable Body was really, it's difficult to read, because the you are reading again, Tambudzai is talking about herself in the third person, but she's the one who's telling the story. And we know that she's not doing well. She's As soon as you meet her in the third novel, you know that she's on the verge of a mental breakdown. She's just going to collapse and disintegrate at any moment. And then the life world, the sort of environment that you discover, you enter through Tambud's eye, are also disintegrated and fragmented, because that's how she's experiencing the world around her. And it is a difficult novel in the sense that, keeping pace with it can too much. Like, you have to work hard, and it's not even as what can I say, I thought it was really like exciting, but it can, I can imagine if people say that it's slow paced, or it that that editing could, I think I read in a couple of reviews that editing could have been better. The novel could have been finished in 50 pages less, compared to what it is right now. But I thought that each line actually was so important. I mean, I did not feel, I thought that she was so already so precarious with her language, very, using language as a very scarce resource. The word, absolutely no extravagance in the novel. And I thought each word was where it's supposed to be, kind of a thing. Each comma is where it's supposed to be. And I really, really liked, I don't want to say enjoyed, because it was a difficult process. And, it really made me wonder if even works of literature now should come with trigger warnings. I mean, it really made me think, because the novel really, really made me uncomfortable at a few points. So yeah, but it does open up some very, very interesting questions again about um, the experience of selfhood for
Mhm.
women. I
Mhm.
think that was my takeaway from the novel.
One thing which distinguishes this vulnerable body from real life is that in real life there is an interiority. Real life is something happens and Wallace does not like it. Wallace feels uncomfortable. So we have an internal monologue where we know Wallace what Wallace is thinking. Whereas in this vulnerable body, the interiority of Tambu is not there. It's just description. We never know. We can feel that Tambu is at the point of a breakdown, but the author will never go into her mind and tell us how uncomfortable Tambu is feeling at this moment. That particular scene, which I just found very weirdly disturbing, of when she goes back home and her mother and her dad are in the same room and she hears screams throughout the night from her mother's room. And she doesn't say anything. And we don't have the interiority. They're just there. They're part of the life, the screams. And then the next day, she asks her mother in a very matter of fact way, like the questions that we ask, which we don't want to be answered honestly. How was, did you sleep well? And the mother responds that you would have heard it. And violence in such subdued manner, hidden, and yet not commented upon by the narrator, yet not commented upon by the author, but it just exceeds, it just exists in the world, and taken off as it is. That's, I think you used a very appropriate word for that. That's creepy. It's creepy. The violence is happening in the next door, and you can hear it, but nobody has anything to say about it. And
Yeah.
that's perhaps how we see our own contemporary world shaping.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it is really creepy. That scene where she sees her hostel mate on the combi, and the men doing whatever they're doing, and her non-action was creepy for me. It was, I was, again, I felt a lot of secondhand rage and a lot of anger and frustration, that what is happening? Why are they uh, even talking to each other about it? So that was, yeah. But I think, when there's so much violence, it becomes a part of your life, and then you stop commenting on it, just like the way, you stop commenting on, I don't know, the I don't know, the precarity of life in general. So
Perhaps,
yeah,
perhaps.
yeah,
The, you know, I agree with that. Matlab, I just feel that, you know, uh, as an author, as probably in real life, rage is a proper medium to react to these things. But as an author, I think it would have brought the work down if
yeah,
Tambu would have just become this
yeah,
rage, like kind of. righteous figure who stands up for her, friend in a bus, but she does not. She's like a,
Yeah. Yeah.
she just she's having a disaster of her own, and she sees a disaster unfolding in front of her, and the tendency to look away, and you know that this is going to stick in your unconsciousness, and you're going to remember it and feel strange about it.
Awful.
Awful,
Yeah.
awful. She gets a flat, and then there is a man living next door, and he's a sexual harasser. He's a like a playboy who's has a lot of affairs, and the constant fear that you can be attacked by this man, and yet you're staying at the same place, and then you hear the narrative of another woman who has a story about getting attacked by the same man. It's uh, it's just living at the edge of the world, and not speaking anything about it, and not letting the readers listen to her inner voice, her anger, her frustration, nothing. It's just observing someone standing at the
Yeah,
yeah.
and imagine that kind of patience as a writer, kind of resolve as a writer. Of course, I mean, if you look at her profile, Siddhi Dangaramba's profile, she's a very political person. She's an activist. She's a filmmaker. She talks a lot about race and gender and the intersection of race and gender. And I kept wondering how much self-discipline does it, how much restraint, your favorite word, how much restraint does it take for a writer to not let their voice enter the novel, in active ways. So that is really what, was brilliant for me in the novel.
I just had this visual description. It's like seeing someone standing at the edge of the mountain, and being constantly conscious that they're going to fall down, and then staring at them for 2 hours, and and there's a wind blows, and they're falling down. Something else happens, they're falling down, and you just do not even allow us to get inside to the head of the person and let us listen to their voice. What do they feel being in such a situation? We're like, no, let's just put a camera there and just observe them standing at the edge of the world. uh, God, yeah, that's how it was. This mournable body. I think I like, after real life, which was your favorite, like this mournable body.
Yes.
Yeah,
In fact, I have a very difficult time saying that real life is my favorite and not this mournable body. I mean,
you're conflicted between them.
like my heart is really with this mournable body. Like, and because I read the trilogy and it totally, like, it comes together so well in
Mhm.
mournable body that my heart totally lies with this mournable body. I'll be really pleased if it wins. Um,
Mhm.
but I think that, considering that it's Brandon Taylor's debut,
Mhm.
and he has, just, I think he's just delivered a masterpiece. Really, it is, it's like the first stroke of the artist is, it happens, right, with a lot of people, that the first novel they write is their best novel. For
The
example,
best
even
novel.
Arundhati Roy,
Dati Roy.
people would
Yeah.
say. Um, but I hope that doesn't happen with Taylor. I mean, he's been to the Iowa Writers program, quite fancy. So I hope that he writes more. But considering all of that, I think I'd say real life. But I'd be really happy if this Mournable Body wins. I'll buy the book if it wins.
The one novel, the first novel that I read was Shaggy Bane
Chucky Bane.
by Douglas Stewart, and that again is for me, if I have to rate my feelings about the novel, it will be real life at the top, and then Shaggy Bane, and then I will come to This Mournable Body, and then Burnt Sugar, and
Really,
all of
Burnt
that.
Sugar is your fourth.
Burnt Sugar is my fourth. Yeah, Burnt Sugar would be my fourth. Uh,
Burnt Sugar is the one that everyone's placing their bets on.
I am. Dekho, I did not like the sense of an ending. I did not enjoy the White
Oh, I
Tiger, so I
loved
am.
it. Oh, I didn't like the White Tiger, but I
Uh,
loved the sense of an ending.
So, and guess what? The year that the White Tiger won, okay, don't hold me accountable for this, was the same year when Sea of Poppies was nominated by Amitabh Ghosh, and it did not win.
Really?
Yes. So,
I didn't know that.
yes. And, this kind of choice that Booker makes is just, I don't know. At times I feel confused by it. Like there are certain I'm quite sure they're just brilliant. Like
The
Arundhati
God of
Roy's
Small
God of
Things.
Small Things is quite brilliant. Midnight Children is brilliant. Disgrace is brilliant. Disgrace is almost like a perfect novel that has won the Booker.
Yeah,
But
even the
with
last year's win, at least Girl,
I
Woman,
haven't read
Other,
that
I
one.
thought was, yeah. I
I
thought
haven't read
it
it.
totally deserved to win, yeah.
It deserved to win. But then there are books like, you have read that book by Kiran Desai. How's that book?
The Inheritance
The
of
Inheritance of
Loss.
Loss. Yeah.
I think because we're South Asians, they're Indians, it was a very familiar story being told. So at the level of the content, I thought it was a very, very familiar story being told. Again, that mother-daughter relationship, right? It is it plays an important role as far as I remember. Um, I like Kiran Desai. I do not have very intense feelings about her, but I think that she has that very keen eye to look at the family structure in South Asia. She I think is a master at talking about the problematic, conflicting, oppressive space that families often are, especially for women, and the interiority of a family in that sense, and she does that very well. So yeah, it wasn't bad. I mean,
So
it was definitely way better than White Tiger.
White Tiger is an, I don't know, it's an outlier. Like I don't think it. Anyways, let's come to Shuggy Bain. Shuggy Bain is, if real life, if I'm talking at the level of not my personal feeling, I think real life is the most well crafted novel among all the novels. Like it's the most finely crafted one. It's like this. It's like, I would say that Shuggy Bain is the second most finely crafted novel. The only problem that Shuggy Bain has is that it's a little too long.
How
And
is it longer? It's longer than this one, kya? The Shadow King.
I'm not sure. I think it has somewhere around 400 pages, 400 something pages. So, but Shuggy Bain is has that thing of one theme, two characters, the Shuggy Bain and Agnes Bain, how his mother, one narrative, and despair, darkness, suicide, violence, sexual violence, all of those things are there. Nothing feels unreal, and it just sticks to its theme for 400 pages. And all of that is uh, it's written as a whole novel. It's structured well. In terms of sentences, it's structured brilliantly. Brilliant sentence structures. Sentences, it's easy. A lot of people talk about, Avni Doshi's novel as being very well written. Avni Doshi's novel is well written in the sense that she has those wonderful sentences that you can, while reading, you'll just sit back and you'll be like, oh, this is great. But to have the consistency of a style from the very beginning to the very end, which real life has, which Shuggy Bain has, remind it requires a master to do that. That kind of thing is not possible. Uh, a good paragraph, a well-written paragraph, you can find it in a good novel, but a consistency of style is something that Shuggy Bain achieves, and achieves it brilliantly. And I was just, it to me, it has been the toughest novel to read because it was tough because it was written in this dialect, and a lot of
Yeah.
words you
Yeah,
don't
yeah, 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 yeah.
understand. But he also, there is also an attempt in Douglas Stewart that he is not going to take the English language as it is. He's going to twist it and turn it around and break it and fit it into the dark atmosphere of Glasgow. This is something like, Rashidi did it in a very bright kind of overtones and made it more jubilant and colorful like India in Midnight Children. but that attempt to just make the language suit your surrounding, make the language suit your characters, is something uh, impeccable in Shaggy Bane. And okay, again, there are two gay writers nominated this time. The Douglas Stewart was also, and Brandon Taylor also, and I think both of them have written the best novels. Okay, this is a random comparison. There's no point to this,
Yes, please don't
but
essentialize writers.
I should read more gay novelists because maybe
Yes.
maybe I enjoy their work.
Vikram
I should
Seth.
read it.
Vikram.
Yes, everybody's been asking me to read The Suitable Boy that I
Yes.
haven't
Can
read.
you see the suitable boy
No,
on?
please bring it. Please bring
It's
it.
the last. It's the last book in the like in the shelf.
Please bring it. Please bring
Okay, wait.
it. So I will talk till you get The Suitable Boy, and everyone has watched the 5 series show on Suitable Boy, and everybody loves it. And I am avoiding picking up a 1300-page novel because I won't end it for 6 months. Uh, okay, Nancy is just gonna drop her stack of books. I see. No, she's not. Oh God, Nancy, how many pages is this? How many pages is this?
This is 1300 pages.
1300 pages.
No,
I
this
will
is
end it.
1500 pages.
I
Yes.
will. If I start reading, I'll end it in a decade. So I
No,
shouldn't
no,
start.
no. I read it again in a week.
We have very different reading speeds. We will not reveal that to the people out here. But yeah, I will not finish it for a long time, so I will not start it. I have,
I love it. I think, like Vikram Seth he's again, what a gaze, yeah. What keen eyes he has. Nothing
mm,
escapes his, gaze. It's just brilliant. And everything,
mm,
the Hindi word,
mm.
I finally get a chance to use it. Zaheen, I think his gaze is very Zaheen. He's just like
Zaheen, I've never heard this word. What does this mean?
nuanced
Nuanced.
is
Zaheen.
roughly the Hindi, the English translation.
Oh, it's a Urdu word.
Yeah, it must be like yeah,
Uh,
I know the word.
eh,
Yeah, English
so,
Chinese.
so yeah, Shaggy Bane is difficult to read. Shaggy Bane has, I think this guy Douglas Stewart should write uh, plays or maybe even movies because he creates elaborate set pieces. He is, I can imagine it's not scene, it's a set piece. It's a There is a curtain, there are people sitting on the table, people are arguing, and after the chapter ends in 30 pages, the people have left because they had a fight, the curtain has been burned down, the house has been marred. So that kind of set pieces is very good at creating. So very powerfully dramatic writer, very well written novel, very well written novel. I will uh, For me, it's going to be at the top real life, then Shuggy Bane, then this Mournable Body, then what do you call the what's the name of the fourth one? Bird Sugar. I'm forgetting the name. Oh God, I,
Burnt sugar, yeah.
yeah,
The girl in
I
white
think
cotton.
Girl in White Cotton. I think everybody's love so much for Burnt Sugar has made me a little averse to it. Otherwise, I thought it was a decent novel. But what do
Mhm.
you feel about Shadow King?
So it's just, again, like I really liked it. And I think I doubt myself actually a lot when I talk about books because
I
I
also doubt you.
I don't remember the last time I have said that I did not like this book. Um, it's been a long time. I think the right
I
time.
remember those days when Nancy used to love Tuesdays with Molly.
Oh no. I like Tuesdays with Maury. But okay, no. Maury is not the kind of literature I read anymore. But I thought that, the story that Manza Mengiste is telling, I mean, is such a grand story, of a war. Um, and to humanize everyone in that story, to not create binary oppositions of victim and perpetrators and people who are doing it and people who are at the receiving end of it, and uh, of enemies and friends. I thought that was really the success of the novel, because it's set in the context of a war, and in war there are two sides. In war you're fighting with the enemy, but when the characters didn't know who were the enemies, especially the women in the novels, they did not know who were the enemies. They were being raped at home. They were being raped by the Italians, uh, by their own family members, by their own commander in so that kind of, blurring of all these lines that we think exist was really done so well by Mengiste. And again, the lines were so well crafted. Each line felt like, that she's put in so much thought, and that consistency of style throughout the novel was like really, I mean, it was so. Again, it's a 420 pages novel, I think. So, that style is very difficult to maintain. But she did it. She did it. The only point where I sort of, and this is no criteria to judge a novel, but again, for me, I have read this story earlier. I have read this story, especially in the works of Svetlana Alexievich, who won the 2015 Nobel Prize for Literature. Uh, and I've read similar stories. So to me, it's like that. There are a lot of stories that I've already read, and they are coming together in this novel. So in some ways, the first time I meet Hirut and Kidane, who's like she's a servant at Kidane's house. I know that eventually he's going to sexually abuse her. Like the first line about Kidane, I knew that was going to happen. Okay, so so and I don't like it. I don't like write about my being right in predicting about the characters. I want them to surprise me. In real life, they surprised me a lot. Like all the characters, even though I thought I'd met them, but they were surprising. But here, it was just too predictable for me, which is what I wonder why. Maybe I've read too much on wars. I don't know. So
It's just predictable. I haven't completed The Shadow King. I've read parts of it, and it seemed like a very well-written novel to me. The like I've read 20% or 25% of the novel, but it didn't. Oh, you had a visitor. I didn't notice.
my mother.
So it didn't seem. It seemed like a great novel. It's something I'd like to finish. That's how
Yeah,
I
yeah,
feel.
yeah, 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 yeah. I
But yeah,
think, yeah, I thought that the organization of the novel was done quite well, and
yeah,
like as I was saying, it so much reminded me of the Museum of Innocence by Orhan Pamuk, which is one of my
because of the
very,
photograph.
very favorite.
Uh,
Yes, because of the photographs, and I mean, photographs have become such an everyday thing for us, right? With our smartphones and everything. But at one point of time, photographs were not like they were not. We didn't have devices to click photos all the time. And so, what was the role of photographs in a war? That is really interesting.
let's just talk about the whole thing as a whole, as the whole Booker shortlist. One of the things I felt about the shortlist is that some of the novels were difficult to read, and all of them were dark.
Yes.
No, nobody's
Yes.
right.
Yes, and again, I'm just, and maybe this is, the world has always had sexual violence and other kind of violence, but to encounter it in all the novels of the shortlist,
It's yeah. It's
That
quite
was,
strange. And everything. We don't just talking about sexual violence. We're just talking about all the other bad things that can happen. And no novel has even a lighter tone to it.
yeah.
Like some people said Burnt Sugar was funny, but I said you have like a very cute sense of humor, because if you find Burnt Sugar funny, it's so dark. All the time it's dark. Abhi, in the times when literature has turned dark, or is Booker has some fascination for dark novels,
Mm,
what but one thing what I find very uh, something that distinguishes the Booker, like this shortlist, from the books that we have loved earlier, the winners of the Booker, is that there was always a redemptive angle to the story. The
yeah.
God of Small Things, as terrible as it's a story, it ends at the side of the backwaters of Kerala with two lovers sleeping together. Uh, so is Disgrace. It ends with a moment of hope. Midnight Children is just always vibrant with color.
Yeah.
This is,
Exuberant.
this is, if I have to describe like all the novels with one color, it's gray and black and
Yeah.
just
And all
dark.
dark shades of gray, actually. I mean, it's just really, really gray. Even, um, like, you remember in real life, there are some moments of party and, at the lake and people eating ice cream. And Brandon Taylor has found a way to really color those maybe bright moments, maybe fun moments also as like really dark and gray and gloomy. Um,
Yeah, yes, he's done that.
sort of, you're right, maybe Booker. I think like Booker has become like this sort of really hated sort of a prize, in the recent times because people,
Why?
I mean, even what happened last year when Atwood and Atwood's book and Woman Other, they both won the Booker for the first time. Two people were given Booker, one white woman and one black woman. So that sort of really people were asking questions about the political sort of uh, ideologies that Booker Committee harbors and stuff like that. And there is the Guardian curates a list called uh,
Not the book.
not
Uh,
the Booker nominees or something like that. And closer to whom we had the JCB prize, it had a short list. We did not read those books. We read Booker. So
mm.
I think that we should also, yeah, just think about what we are
The
reading, why we are reading.
Okay, this brings me to the next question. Would you read the Booker shortlist next year?
Um, I want to say yes. Um I want to
Mm.
say yes because because good or bad, near or far, I always want to read stories and I always want to read novels. So that is one reason why I would like to still read book the next year. But if this year again, if Avni Doshi wins, then I'll have to rethink.
Then,
Then I'll have to rethink.
if New Wilderness wins,
Then I think then I'll
uh,
have to rethink my understanding of literature.
okay, okay. One of the things I have is I want to, this is perhaps I think from my school days. When I was in school, I had this. I started reading Ruskin Bond, Harry Potter, and then somehow in my school library there were no other books available, so I read Dickens. And after I've read Dickens and Jane Austen and Charlotte Bronte, I've always had this feeling कि अरे मैं तो classical literature पढ़ रहा हूँ, and some of the classical books were not good,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I'm reading classical literature, I'm not enjoying it. What will happen if I read contemporary? I will not enjoy anything. That was a notion. I harbored that notion for I think 2 3 years before delving deeper into contemporary fiction, and I think I will going back to that notion again.
Oh, but some like some contemporary fiction actually is really exciting. There's as I was saying, Otesha Moshfegh, Alejandro Zambra, a couple of people whose names I can't pronounce. There's this book called breast breasts and eggs, which I've been meaning to read, so that I'm going to read. It's by a Japanese author. So I think that by Booker is becoming more inclusive, but even till now the inclusivity is that on gender and on race. But the Latin American writers are very exciting. Japanese, Chinese writers, Korean writers, Han Kang, very very exciting. Very like this is not representative of contemporary literature. I feel that the Booker shortlist is not at all representative of contemporary literature.
I have problems with the argument of inclusivity also because it's a British prize. When we are giving a Sahitya Academy prize, I'm not like, no, why you're not including a Chinese novel in it?
Yeah,
If
yeah,
that
yeah. Yeah,
is,
I understand. I
yeah, every
understand.
prize
Yeah.
has its limitations. Like you won't have a Indian movie which is absolutely brilliant nominated for Oscar because nobody has watched it, and you need different prizes for that. You need different prizes for
Yeah,
different
yeah. So
languages,
I
different
think that
regions.
yeah, so I think that we should remember that, about Booker, that Booker is a very limited prize, and it is not the final answer to our questions on contemporary literature.
Yeah, yeah, true, true, true. And yeah, it's not like we didn't enjoy. I think I loved most of the novels that we read, but I just feel that an overwhelming gloom or kind of fear, like the sword hanging, that I'm going to die before reading my Tolstoy and Dostoevsky and Dickens, all of those.
No, no, choose Dostoevsky. I choose Dostoevsky over everything else.
Yeah, choose Dostoevsky, Tolstoy, and all the other people. And especially for the channel, like I don't want to talk about any book that's not good. Though as much as fun it can be about bashing bad books, it's always like you just bring up the utter gem that nobody knows about or people have heard about, and then you share it with people. That's the kind of thing I want to build. That's my where my heart lies with this.
We should talk about then, Pratyaksha.
Pratyaksha. Okay, I haven't read Pratyaksha. Okay, Nancy. This is the moment that Nancy has a heart attack when I tell her I've not read Pratyaksha. Yeah, we can talk about Nirmal Verma, but let's not. That's a conversation for another day. But for today, this is the winner for both of us.
Yes, real life. I like
Yeah.
it. It'll be great if real life wins.
If real life wins, it'll be great. And apart from real life, which is the second one for you? This mournable body.
Yes, 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 yes. I'll be very happy if this honorable body wins.
This one. Yeah.
Which is
So
the second for you, Shaggy Bane?
yeah, Shaggy Bane, and I will not be very happy if this one wins. I'll be sad if this one wins, but this will not win. Most probably, which do you think will win?
I really feel with all the buzz being created that Avni Doshi is going to win. And it's a win for South Asian literature. Yes, fine. People writing from India, great. But no, I don't know.
Okay, okay. No, everyone has their some kind of identity thing to play. Real life is written by a black gay man. Can you beat that? Then now only, oh God, if we get into identity thing, everyone has something. Douglas Stewart is a any white person here. Whites are the real marginals. I'm telling you, Nancy. They
No, no,
Diana
no,
Cook.
no, 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 no. No.
They one white woman on the list with a straight sexual orientation, and she's going to lose. Yeah, dekha, because they're all against white people. That's the. I think
Okay.
I think I should join the Republican Party soon. Uh,
Okay.
on that note, let's just stop this conversation. I
Yes.
had a nice time having this conversation. Take care, bye, and let's wait for the results on the 17th. Okay, bye,
Bye. See you.
bye, bye. See you, bye.